first, thank you for your brief time that you made for us now. We are interviewing Johan Ronnestam for mediakit. So, first question: what do you think? What do you think brands still get wrong about culture? Because you often talk about brands needing to earn their place in people's lives.
Yeah, obviously some people, some brands do it right, but I think a lot of brands they just create content or campaigns or concepts on the surface. They find something that they think is cool, that it's an ongoing trend, and then they jump on the trend and they basically let that trend, influence their own brand. Whereas the really strong brands, they never. I mean, if you take Nike as an example, which is a really strong brand, I think they would never divert from being Nike, even though they might jump on a temporary trend, but they then turn that trend into Nike. So they're very good at directing. For example, if they do a collaboration with an illustrator, they make sure that the illustrator understands what Nike is. Whereas I think some brands, they would go and they're attracted by, let's say, an illustrator, and they just let the illustrator have free hand. So I think it's very important that if you're a brand owner, that you frame whatever you want with your brand platform, with what you need to get out of it, and that you're you give a lot of freedom to different partners, even if it's a filmmaker, an illustrator, designer, but you make sure that that designer or illustrator or filmmaker or copywriter really understands what your brand is about. If someone would say, tell you like, okay, I want you to run in a pink bath suit and run over the beach. Maybe you do it, maybe not, but you are very clear with what you think is right. And it's the same with the brand. We have to learn what is right and wrong for that brand, and then move, do things within that frame. And I think that's where a lot of brand goes wrong. They mistake themselves for someone that you can repaint whatever you need to, and you have to stay true to who you are in the spine or in the heart of the brand, so to say.
Just a side question: would maybe we don't have to publish this answer, but I'm interested now. Would maybe the rebranding the Jaguar would be Jaguar? Would that be an example of that?
Example, I actually had that example in the presentation, but I didn't have time to.
Yeah. Because
only 30 minutes.
Because it got really, it was really weird.
Yeah, but I think when those things happen and there's a new brand coming, where there's a traditional brand coming out with something strange, like Jaguar did. Another example is when Pepsi did the redesign many years ago. People tend to jump on the train and think, what are they doing? We don't really know what they're doing. They're doing a rebranding of Jaguars, and I think if they're doing it right, they probably have a 20-year goal on this rebranding. So
yeah.
And of course, for us, it's going to be like, what the hell are you doing? This is not Jaguar. But they probably know that that's not Jaguar. Behind the scenes, there must be financial needs to rebrand the brand. They must see something that if they don't do it, they will kill Jaguar.
Yeah.
Sometimes you only see small changes of brands, but sometimes every now and then you see these big changes in branding. Another example of a car brand that did it a couple of years ago that we have adopted now and that we don't think it's very strange is Fiat. Fiat looked like shit. It had a different logo. The cars looked different. Then they brought in a new manager and he digitalized the production of Fiat. In 5 years, they released totally new designs of all the cars, and they transformed themselves into something that people think is quite sexy and creative and very beautiful today, even though it's cheap cars. But at the time, people said, this is not Fiat, but today we like it. So I think you can't judge Jaguar yet. But I agree, I was quite surprised.
Coming from pro snowboarding, how did that shape your view of creativity and risk-taking in the business, since it's a pretty risky thing to do, to go down the mountain slope 100. Well, why would you do that? But people could ask, why are you doing that? So how did that help to shape your view of creativity and business?
Yeah, so in my case, I think the biggest change was not the action snowboarding. The biggest change was that I used to be skier, and my family really thought I should ski. And then I told my father, I've started trying this snowboarding out, and I want to snowboard. And my father actually said, No, I think you should focus on skiing. You've done that for 15 years. You're really good at it. I was in the junior team in Stockholm and in skiing. But then I just pursued snowboarding. And in the end, I became, a member of the national team in snowboarding. So the biggest learning was that by following my own thoughts and dreams, I actually succeeded in what I wanted to do. And that after that, I felt very strongly that I should believe in my thoughts and go my way. So that was the big learning, not from snowboarding in steep skis, but otherwise I think, or steep slopes. Otherwise, I think from skiing or maybe even more surfing, where I surf pretty big waves, I think maybe the learning is that if you just prepare yourself as much as possible, you can handle quite tough situations. And I think it's the same in communication. I was just answering someone else's question, how young people should think, and I said, like, teach yourself all the tools, all the way down into every small detail of those tools. If it is filmmaking, using Photoshop, using AI, whatever, because then you can use the toolbox to achieve what you want. A lot of people tend to go on the surface and they just want to make, I don't know, they see a packaging or something and say that I want to design that packaging, and they only copy it. But if you know the tools, you can have a vision and then you can fulfill that vision. So
Yes, it makes sense because it's risk taking. This is risk taking. It gives you some courage to do stuff.
So to do new things, if you want to propose a new idea to a client, a new film or whatever, if they haven't seen it, if they haven't seen anything like it, the client will say like, "Oh, what is this? I never seen anything like this." So it's going to be a big risk for the client. But if you know your tools and you know how to convince the client, then suddenly you can do true innovation.
Yeah. Okay. That's very nice answer.
That's what Jaguar is.
Maybe we'll see in 10 years. Yes. Last question. This is coming from my personal point of view. Question is, what advice would you give to someone looking to bring more emotional cinematic depth to brand narratives, especially today in this digital scroll fast world?
Well, that's a really tough question. It's $1 million question. I think a lot of filmmakers would want answered. But I think every now and then there's a filmmaker that does something that sticks out, and it's usually unique. It's usually an original idea. It's creative, it's beautiful, it's a good story, and it's something worth telling to people. Then people get stuck. But you also have to play it by rules. If you want something to succeed on TikTok, for example, well, that's the medium. Then maybe you shouldn't be on TikTok if you want to do something longer and so on. And so there's no clear answer, but I think it goes back to telling a story that is worth telling in a way that people follow that story. And every now and then there's content like that, and you see that content, and sometimes you're stuck for 60 minutes. But you cannot, but it has to be something that's unique and something worth looking at for 60 minutes. And you're competing with all the content in the world.
Yes.
So it's more challenging, for sure.
It is definitely. So that will be all. Thank you very much. Thank you for your interview.
Thank you very much.